Nowadays, it's very odd to see any cyclist without a GPS head unit on their bike, especially with Strava, Training Peaks, the likes. It's so easy to capture your data and then show it to the world.
That's right. So today we have got two flagship GPS models from two different brands, probably arguably the two most important brands on the market at the moment. The Garmin 1030, or the Garmin Edge 1030.
And the Wahoo Elemnt.
They're each brand's flagship model, and there are a huge amount of differences between the two. And that's exactly what we need to get into.
Yes.
Really.
I mean, Garmin have been the market leaders for a very long time. They haven't had a rival or a worthy rival for a while until Wahoo have come in with the Elemnt, and they've really stuck the cat amongst the pigeons.
I like that.
Is that a saying?
I reckon it could be. It's certainly close to a saying. We'll start with what you actually get when you buy the product in the shop or online. We actually don't have any of the boxes with us.
You just throw that away, don't you? Just straight into recycling.
Everything in it.
Instructions, don't need it.
Don't need it at all. Yeah, so in the... I think they're pretty similar, though. The Garmin...
Yes, they are. I mean, $249.99. You'll get the Elemnt, Wahoo Elemnt computer. With that, you get the computer, of course, and you get 3 mounts. So you get the out front mount, you get an aero bar mount as well as a stem mount. But the only annoyance I have with the stem mount is that it uses zip ties.
Okay.
So once it's on, it's there and it stays there. Or if you want to change it, you have to.
Because usually they're like rubber bands,
which you get with the Garmin, don't you?
Take them off, move them around, and they're really useful. And in fact, that's one of the key things about this is you just get hundreds of those rubber bands in the Garmin box.
Well, because you lose them and they break.
You lose them all the time. But a key difference between the 1030 and the Wahoo Elemnt is that this costs almost exactly double the price of the Elemnt. So these are two flagship GPS computers, but this is £499. That is £249.
Yep.
But for that money, you get Garmin's newly designed out front mount. So this is brand new for this model. And you get lots of the mounts as well, which is really useful because you can have this on your best bike, you have one of the mounts on your winter bike, and then one of the ones on the one you have on the turbo if you have that many bikes. There is like loads of options. They say it's aerodynamic.
It's not looking that aerodynamic.
It doesn't look hugely aerodynamic.
I think it's a bit sleeker than the previous model. But
if we... not seeing the wind like quite go over that smoothly.
No.
But it's brand new. It also has a place on the bottom to attach an additional battery pack if you do Audaxes or particularly long touring rides.
But you don't get that with the Wahoo.
You don't.
But what you do get is a 2.7-inch display screen, and it's a 2D sort of black and white screen. It's not, anything fancy. It sort of works very well, but that's what Wahoo wanted. They wanted a very simple and simply designed screen, and that was to save cost and money. And in fact, everything you need is via the app through the phone.
Yeah.
Where that differs quite a bit to the Garmin.
Differs enormously to the Garmin. So you get this really nice colour screen, and the display is excellent. So it's almost exactly the same size as the Garmin 1000 that it replaces, but they've done a lot of work on the screen, and it does look really nice.
It does. It looks really neat, actually.
They've changed it so it's this big white background. There's lots of different colours. And really, they've put a lot of effort into making this very readable when you're on the bike. And I think that's probably one of the best things this does, is you can instantly read it.
Yeah. If
you're moving, you just look down, you know exactly what you're looking at.
I think they're slowly catching up to the phone screen, the smartphone screen technology, which is ultimately what you want. We're so used to our Androids or iPhones working seamlessly and effortlessly. It's not quite there, I don't think.
No.
But it's certainly a step towards that.
And it looks good, and like the mapping looks brilliant on it. But it will, of course, this will be why battery life takes a bit of a hit, and it costs so much, is because they are putting so much technology into the screen, which when compared to the Elemnt is just like buttons and hardware, is probably less sophisticated than the Garmin.
Yeah, so you get 6 buttons with the Wahoo Elemnt, 2 along the side. an on-off button that allows you to go into a sub-menu to pair with power meters, phones, etc. And then 3 buttons at the front, which are easy to use, fairly tactile, but the ones on the side are sort of a bit clunky. So during the winter, as it is now, it was a bit hard to sort of operate with gloves, for example. But you know, they are quite tactile. You can feel where you are in terms of where the buttons are. And I think it's just a solid, you know, large unit.
Quite large. Yeah, but its design works, and what is key with the Element is that it's really intuitive. You can't go wrong with it. Like, it's all set up through the app, which is a piece of cake. And then the buttons, you press them, you work out what they do, and then that is absolutely fine. You know exactly what you're going to be doing. Yeah. Just
to touch on a point with the mapping, it is very easy to see, actually, and it's quite a simple map to follow. Garmin's of old, I've struggled with following the route, because you get your purple line, and then you're actually doing a loop, so you're on the road that you come back on, for example. And then you're like, is it that way or is it this way? And if you upload your rides via, you know, certain platforms, you don't get the turn-by-turn navigation. But you do now with the Garmin. You can upload your Strava route and it will give you turn-by-turn.
Always gives you turn-by-turn on your Strava route that you upload. But like you say, if you do a balloon loop, so you go out, loop and come back, it will often lose itself on the way back in. And so on the map screen, you can still just follow the line on the map, but it won't tell you what's coming up or where you're meant to be going.
Right.
It just kind of loses itself a little bit when you go back on it.
So with the Wahoo, Ride with GPS is what they recommend you use your routing with. And once it's saved and linked to your app, which is linked to your phone, you'd always have that downloadable to your unit. I've used Strava, and I always use Strava, which thousands of other people do. You don't get turn by turn, but you get the very simple sort of Chevron patterned guide on the map, which is very clear. There's no mistaking of which direction you need to go. The only thing is, if you do that, if you jump to another screen to view your data, it won't tell you.
It's a bit of a shame.
So I'm just going to rudely go on my phone here and get the app going. And you can see roughly there that it's just a simple to use app. You've got your ride section, so you can actually use the app just with your phone, just to go for a ride and have in your pocket.
Yeah.
So what you do is you scroll through the screens and you go to select your Element or your Bolt or your Mini, and your camera is accessed. And what the Wahoo will do, if it's not paired with anything, it would link the QR code that comes up, and you link that to your app. And as soon as that's done, you're instantly paired. And then through your mobile app, you customize absolutely everything through the Wahoo computer. So all the annoyances that I've found in the past with Garmin, going through menus and sub-menus and holding here to change here, it's so easy to do on the phone interface. As we all know, smartphones technology is so good, and you just scroll through the screens, add how many you want, and then instantly updates and gives you that on the screen. So here, I think I've got the maximum you can have on a customized screen, which is like 11 different bits of information
on one page.
Yeah, it's just overload. I'm sure you can actually quickly look down and see what's going on. It can't get any simpler, I don't think. And then via the app, you create all your routes. So we can see here, I've got a number of routes linked to my Strava already. And then at the top, you can take me to, create from history, sync from web, import file.
It's brilliant because when you change data fields on this, on your phone, it's real-time updates. You can hold the computer and you can see the page change. There's no lag, no delay, it doesn't take any time. And like you said, this is what is totally different to the Garmin, because the Garmin is all set up on the device, which this is a touchscreen Garmin, and I think everyone understands the pains that we went through with the Edge 820.
820 was particularly bad.
The touchscreen was particularly bad, and Garmin have worked a lot to improve it, and it is better, but it just makes setting up the device so difficult when you're having to like navigate through it to your activity profiles, and then you're trying to,
like, there's a slight loading
screen.
Slight
lag, and then you have to hold things to get it to change, and it just takes so long. And it's really interesting that everything people always say about Garmin touchscreens is, why doesn't it work like my mobile phone works? And there are really good reasons why it isn't identical to your mobile phone, and it's to do with like how much that will cost. The battery life of the unit would just be destroyed by a touchscreen as sensitive as a mobile phone. But it's really interesting that it's almost like Wahoo have heard that and gone, we have a way to make that work which isn't to the detriment of the battery life on the computer.
And it's what works as good as a smartphone.
Yeah.
A smartphone. And what we need to do here is make everything clear, concise and easy to use. But all the software that you need to run with that, you've already got.
Yeah.
You know, who doesn't have a smartphone now?
It's very clever. This doesn't need to be a smartphone. We all own smartphones. It just needs to work with that smartphone in an intelligent way, which is exactly what Wahoo have done, and it's really impressive.
A couple of points though with the Wahoo is that if you don't have a smartphone, you will not be able to set this up. The other thing to note is, even though when I've been riding with the Bolt or the Element, I've always had my phone connected, but you don't have to have that on to access routes and the rides and record your data via GPS, which is a thing to point out, because some computers rely on your phone.
They do.
And that drains
They piggyback,
batteries.
often will piggyback the GPS.
And with the Garmin and the Wahoo, you don't need to do that.
No.
So the last couple of points before we move on to anything software related, there's a couple of things on the Wahoo Element that are very interesting and that the Garmin certainly doesn't have, and that's LEDs running up the top and along the top. Very sceptical at first, but then as a quick glance down, and you know, once you sort of learn where you should be in a sense, or you've pre-planned a ride or route or a workout, and you can look down and go, right, I'm on pace. Yeah. I'm on you know, the heart rate I want. You know, the power is kind of where I want it to be. And yes, of course, you know if you're working hard and you know if you're not. But when you're trying to sort of fine-tune it, or you're working a bit too hard to look down, or you're in a busy section, you can sort of have a little glance and see the lights. And you can actually see them fairly well in daylight as well when the lights are clear. But then out on the road, the ones along the top can show you navigation and give you other indications that you can set all via the app.
So really the last part of the hardware we haven't spoken about is the battery life.
Yeah, so 16 hours for me on the Wahoo.
20 for this, but I think this probably goes for both units, as you're not likely to hit that.
No, and I think the more you have connected, and if the backlight is on forever and it doesn't, you know, close down after 5 seconds or whatever, it's kind of, you know, the type of riding you do and what you're using it for. If you have your heart rate, power and speed sensor.
The battery life on that is pretty good.
It is good.
It lasts quite a long time. In fact, an impressively long time. The Garmin, as I think you would expect, is less, but that is just because it's doing so much. But what is good about Garmin is that they offer you so many different ways to improve that. So I always ride with GPS GLONASS, which is like the most accurate GPS you can use. But you can just have standard GPS, or you can have, I can't remember what they call it now, but there is a setting where you basically have GPS only come on for short bits.
Okay.
So just enough to track where you're going, but then it turns off and doesn't eat your battery.
I've always found with Garmin's that, you know, you use them once, maybe twice, and you definitely have to recharge. Whereas the Wahoos, you use them for a week and you're kind of like, I should charge it now. Or, you know, the app, for example, sends you a notification saying, remember to charge your Element, which is a bit cheesy and corny, but it's kind of like, oh yeah, I need to do that. Yeah. So you don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, it's out of battery.
So we'll seamlessly move from that to software now, and what is actually in the computer, what it does, how it helps you cycling, really.
Yeah.
Which is, the Garmin has so much.
I could probably just walk off now,
but yeah, like
for a good 10 minutes whilst you explain.
I'll still be rambling on. In fact, there'll be stuff I forget that this can do, because in here, in this body, is just basically a performance lab of tools that you can use to improve your cycling. So it's so clever. Like, Garmin have built this to be a performance machine. Like, this is to make you fitter and faster, and whether that's VO2 max tests, FTP tests, through to advanced workouts, you know, there's so much that this can do. And it can also tell you So if you go on My Stats here, this is particularly nice. It just basically tells you everything you have in a really nicely laid out way.
That is very smart
It's
function.
very smart. And then like pedal balance is really smart as well. It has like a nice little detailed image, and it shows you what you're doing on each one. So this is designed to be used with other tools: power, cadence, speed. Like this is when this flourishes, is when you have everything working to like as you would in the gym or on your home on like a smart turbo.
But yeah, if you have all those tools, it's a very useful function. It holds all the data together, isn't it? It tells you how long you need to recover for. That I think is way overestimates a few things. You go for a long run, it's like you need 3 days to recover now, which is probably true.
I mean, that's about what I do after my commute to work, to be honest.
But as in terms of making sure you have everything you need, or at least have everything in readable form, the Garmin is hands down the winner.
Yeah, it is. It's impressive. Like, it's almost... you can get lost in it a little bit, and I found that. I mean, I will confess that, you know, I don't particularly train that hard. I don't race. I'm not performance orientated, so these are less useful to me. But someone, like, we have a lot of people who race in our office, and they really rated this and what it can tell you. Yeah. And it is super impressive.
So for the Wahoo Elemnt, it's a lot simpler, as you may have worked out from what we've been telling you so far. But as soon as you finish a ride, it says stop ride, and you go yes, and it saves automatically. That's like a little thing that goes, that's really useful. I didn't think of that. Whereas Garmin always say save, discard. There's always that percentage chance that you go,
especially on a touch screen.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. I discarded my 5-hour ride that I really need to upload to Strava. Whereas the Wahoo just saves it regardless. It's like, why worry about anything else? And on the computer, it will give you a rundown of your ride, and you can scroll through the screen. Interestingly, you can they have like a perfect view on the Wahoo. So you can actually scroll through. If I go to a page where I have all my data, my 11 data fields, you can see here that you can zoom in, so only see what you want, going straight down to one field, which is speed, for example, or could zoom out and like see whatever you want. And you can do that on the workout screens, so it probably isn't as complex as the Garmin, but it allows you to do different workouts. Within the unit itself, it stores planned workouts. So without you syncing to Strava or Training Peaks, which is the one I use, if you set up a training session in there, you can download it to your Wahoo Elemnt, and it'll run the training session for you. So it'll tell you how many intervals you have to go, how long till the next interval. So 10-minute warm up, you're warming up, and it goes right 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sprint to power, heart rate, speed, and then, as you mentioned earlier, going on the rollers and doing a session, it's very hard to you want to look at the clock you have on the wall, or you have your watch there, or you know, even in your Garmin, you try and look at the time, but this displays it very easily, and the screen moves around, which I quite like. But on here, you could do an FTP test, 20-minute one or an 8-minute one. And because Wahoo works with Team Sky, they have 3 sessions in there that you can work to. So you can just select a pre-installed test for you to do, which I think is quite good, actually. And as I say, you can just sync it to Training Peaks and follow a session that maybe your coach has given you, or you decide to give to yourself because you want to put yourself through some pain.
And I think all high-end GPSs have to kind of be able to do that, right? They're training tools as much as they are just recording tools. Yeah. But I think Garmin just kind of takes it to the next level.
Sure, but all within the unit, which I think is quite nice. Yeah. Whereas the Wahoo, again, really relies on the app to if you want to see a detailed view of your road rides, and it records all the power, cadence, speeds, heart rate, etc., and gives you some really nice graphs to look at. Torque effectiveness, balance, smoothness, etc. But that is all via the app.
So jumping back to navigation quickly, in terms of software, Garmin has introduced something new for the 1030, which is called Trendline. So something that Garmin has always been able to do on its flagship models, definitely on the 820 and on this, is it could create routes in the device rather than you having to upload them. So you could just put in it had like round trip planner where you put in, you said, I want to use my location and create a route that is 20, 40, 60K, anything like that, and it would just create a loop and bring you back. And it was, you know, it worked. I used it a couple times when I was testing the Edge 820, and there was a few times when you ended up on some slightly dubious roads in terms of how busy they were, and it was kind of like not the natural choice of where cyclists would ride.
Yeah.
So then Garmin introduced Trendline, which basically crowdsources all the data from their Garmin Connect website of where people are riding, and they say it uses that to create the best route for cyclists. Again, we found it to be a bit hit and miss. When we lent this to someone in the office, they were trying to use it. They live outside of London, and it was very good at pointing them into London, and we figured that might be because people were commuting in by bike and they were like recording that data. So some very busy roads were used by commuters, and then this thought that was a sensible way to send cyclists. So it's a nice idea, if not particularly finessed yet, but that is the type of thing that can be updated, like firmware updates can fix those type of problems.
And I find with the 2D screen, it's very easy to follow the mapping on here. Everything is pretty much preloaded. I think there's a select few countries that you probably need to download, but all the European countries, USA, etc., are all on here. And it's very clear, Chevron marked route.
The chevrons are nice.
Yeah, and it doesn't
clear.
Interfere with like looping back or anything like that. So, you know, you're going in a direction, and if your route does cross, there's no confusion. It just shows you where you need to go, and then when the loop does come back around, you just follow it where it's going, which is very simple and very easy to use. I was quite surprised actually. I went for a couple of days holiday. I pre-done a route in the office before I went, and then I forgot to sort of transfer it over. But because it was saved in my Strava's linked to my phone and my Wahoo, it was there straight away. I was like, oh, that was so easy. And it was kind of odd to me that it just worked. Do you know what I mean? And Wahoo have done a very good job, again, with the software.
Definitely. One thing to quickly mention is Garmin have once again understood that people want to use this for a long time, in terms of long rides, distance they're going. Multiple day adventures. So in this little, yes, this is where you put micro XD card, additional storage, which because it comes with base maps, but a lot of people, if you're touring, you like to use OS maps. They're more detailed. So this is where you would put them into the computer, and then this, as you see, very tight-fitting cap.
Well, that's good, safe. You know.
Yeah, that's what you want. Don't want any water ingressing in there.
Obviously, the Garmin has a lot more fitness-based features. The Wahoo can actually link to your Wahoo Kicker, funnily enough. If you have the Kicker or the Snap, you can link it through your computer, your Wahoo computer, and can control the device as well. So it's actually quite good at training. It wants to switch off.
So does it control the turbo, or does the turbo control?
It controls the turbo, so you can muck about with your training sessions, any pre-plans, workouts that you've got, you can navigate that in. Okay, well, I think that pretty much sums us up for our head-to-head versus video, the Garmin 1030 against the Wahoo Elemnt, which are arguably the two biggest products in the GPS world. But Rupert, what would you go for?
It would have to be the Wahoo, I think. Purely because it's ease of use, and this, I've always been a Garmin user as well, and Wahoo converted me, and I think it has been converting a huge amount of people as well.
I think that's a very key point, actually, and I'm going to agree with Rupert and say I'm siding with the Wahoo at the moment. Well, I think that's it. I think Wahoo and the Elemnt wins this versus, and I think that's unanimous between us.
I think so.
But if you liked this video, please do comment and tell us what you'd like to see pitched head-to-head in a versus-style video with none other than me and Rupert, maybe Oliver, I don't know. But until next time, see you then. But you can have multiple different pages. Here's, someone's calling, look, someone's calling.
You're getting a phone call. I'm getting a phone call. Hello? I am innocent, but I've not had an accident. I can't believe that demonstrated exactly what we were proving.